Hello everyone, I'm Greg Weaver. Welcome to the Audio Analyst. Pardon me. Well, hello baby. Hey. Hi babe. Go lay down. Go lay down, sweetie. Good girl. Today I'm going to talk about a remarkable sounding Noval tube-based DAC. Many of you may know that LampizatOr was founded near Warsaw, Poland in 2010. But I'd wager that even more of you are unaware that LampizatOr builds electronics and speakers, as it was their exceptionally well-built tubed DACs that really put the company on the map. Owned and operated exclusively by its designer, Łukasz Fikus. After hearing the disarming $17,250 Golden Gate DAC 7 years ago, then the even more engaging $27,000 Pacific DAC at Exponent in 2018, the reasons for their successes were clear. Both those SET-based devices offered a conspicuous step closer to the undeniable naturalness, organic coherence, and more faithfully rendered space and dimensionality offered by the very best LP transcription systems. Łukasz and LampizatOr North America principal Fred Ainsley have recently announced the launch of the nearly $50,000 Horizon DAC, which I will be getting to hear at its official launch during the 3rd Florida Audio Expo, going on when this episode first drops. Watch for an episode covering that launch here soon. While those three previously mentioned DACs share a commonality, a circuit foundation based upon directly heated triodes, the remarkable device I'm going to talk about today, the Baltic 3, has a notably different heritage. The goal for this DAC was to approximate as closely as possible the enchanting sonic achievements offered by the Golden Gate 2 DAC, but at roughly 1/3 the cost. Hell of a challenge. Now, Łukasz says that after some 10 years of experimentation and prototyping, he arrived at this design, which he considers to be a breakthrough, one embodying all he has learned about digital to analog conversion, yet offering exceptional value. He shared with me that with the $6,600 LampizatOr Baltic 3, he feels he has pushed Noval tube design circuitry to new limits, representing the pinnacle LampizatOr DAC design based on such miniature tubes. The faceplate is about 24/64 of an inch or 10 millimeters thick. It is 17 3/8 inches or 440 millimeters wide, and 4 3/4 inches or 120 meters tall, with a depth of about 13 inches or 330 millimeters. The tube complement adds another 7 7/8 inches or 200 millimeters to the standing height, and the whole machine weighs in at nearly 29 pounds or 13 kilograms. Now, this DAC is available in the widest range of color combinations I am aware of, allowing you to mix and or match colors, selecting different options for the faceplate and the top chassis. Choices for the faceplate included the default charcoal, which I opted for, as well as silver, champagne, black, white, or red, and you may opt to have the top chassis finished in silver, white, red, or at additional cost, you may even select real copper. Now, the faceplate is very Spartan, with only the laser-engraved LampizatOr logo, about 2/3 of the way down from the top, oriented so that the stylized O in the logo is centered, outlining the ringlet push-button switch to select the USB input. All other inputs, SPDIF, Toslink, and AES EBU, are selected using a switch on the rear panel. Moving to the rear panel, from right to left, we have the AC selector switch for either 115 or 100 or 230 volts, followed by the power toggle switch, both mounted directly above the IEC mains socket. Next, we see the branding badging, including the serial number which takes up about the next 1/3 or so of the rear panel. We then encounter the input selector knob immediately above the high-low gain switch, selectable as either 4 or 8.5 volts. These are followed by a set of balanced XLR outputs, then the single-ended outputs, each oriented vertically, left above right. Next up, the optical and RF SP diff inputs, and finally, the USB and AES EBU XLR jacks. The Baltic 3 features truly balanced topology and incorporates 4 monophonic channels, with the individual channels devoted to generating each phase of the stereo signal. Incorporating the LampizatOr digital engine number 53A, their code name for the delta signal-based converter it is based upon, because of its proprietary nature, no other details are offered. The design of delta sigma analog to digital converters results in an engine that is approximately 3/4 digital and 1/4 analog. And such converters typically consist of an oversampling modulator followed by a digital decimation filter working together to produce a high-resolution data stream output. As well as being their most popular engine, it supports automatic recognition of all sampling rates from 32 kHz to 768 kHz, bit rates from 16 to 32-bit, and DSD 64, 128, 256, and 512. However, with Apple iOS-based computers, it will only support up to quad rate DSD, or DSD 256, I'm sorry. The circuit also includes the Polish-made True Copper MyFlex output capacitors, which offer oxygen-free, non-inductive copper foil designed using a polypropylene dielectric. As well as employing this newly applied tube technology, one that Łukasz claims redefines what is possible with Noval tubes, it also applies a directly heated dual diode rectifier, CLC, or pi type, filtered anode power supply. As touched on, it offers 4 digital inputs: USB, SPDIF, Toslink, and AES USB, as well as having both single-ended and balanced outputs. Now, the use of USB data with the Baltic 3 requires the installation of an additional converter module to convert the packet data into a steady I2S stream. Using an asynchronous converter, it implements internal RAM, 2 clocks, as well as its own power supply and power transformer secondary winding. The USB module requires a specific I2S over USB audio driver for Windows, while Linux and Mac iOS, which is essentially a graphic user interface laid over a Unix core, will both work without any additional drivers. The Baltic 3 uses the JL LampizatOr USB module, and the appropriate Windows driver is available online. Now, as delivered from the factory, AC to DC conversion for the Baltic 3 is accomplished via a 5C3S, or 5U3C when stenciled in Cyrillic, rectifier, mounted front and center. The stock input front end uses a set of Chinese Peasvane 6 SN7GT blue balls, while the rear end output buffers use a set of Russian Electroharmonics Gold 12 BH7s, all mounted on the top of the chassis. Now, interestingly, Łukasz also included a set of rather rare 1953 Soviet military NOS MELZ 6H8C metal-based tubes to roll in place of the stock Chinese blue balls, as well as a set of the current production Russian reissued Mullard 12AU7 or ECC82s to roll in place of the stock Russian 12 BH7s. As many of you who have followed my work over the decades will know, my biggest complaint about digital playback is its likelihood to be more tonally barren and considerably less dimensionally accurate or representative than good LP playback. But what I was hearing with the Baltic 3 had me encouraged with this unpretentious and more affordable LampizatOr offering. And once the unit was in place and had about 100 hours or so in run-in, it had become clear that I was being treated to the lion's share of the naturalness and space that had won me over with both the Golden Gate and the Golden Gate 2 and the newer Pacific. Now, when it comes to delivering the deep frequency dive, sub-bass and bass are not only well extended, they are very fast, tight, and offer remarkably solid and stable pitch definition, especially with DSD and higher sampling rate PCM sources. Listening to bass sample cuts from Cobas like the Hounds of Krim from the 2016 Krim Crimson release live in Vienna, or Sastanàqqàm by Tinariwen, a group of Tuareg musicians from the Sahara Desert region of northern Mali from their 2017 release Elwan, you are treated to a sense of the immense power and dynamism of such music. And while it may not quite match the blistering speed and uber control offered by some pricier world-class DACs, their Pacific included, it nonetheless delivers exceptional performance for a DAC in such an affordable class. However, mid-range purity, along with tonal color and accuracy, are clearly one of this DAC's biggest gifts to music lovers. Listening to cuts like Laughing from David Crosby's 2021 50th anniversary remastered solo release in 24-bit 96 kilohertz of If I Could Only Remember My Name, Crosby's perfectly microtuned guitar is lush and liquid, including much of the incredible presence and sustain I am treated to when playing my original US 1971 Atlantic pressing on my LP rig. Now, staying with that same track, while listening to the sound of Jerry Garcia's pedal steel guitar, supported by Phil Lesh's dulcet bass tones, all these guitars are beautifully rendered, laying bare their captured sparkle and inflection for your pleasure. Listening into the mix, you are permitted to readily identify each distinctive and individual voice, most notably the high harmony vocalizations of Joni Mitchell as the cut winds to a close. The uppermost registers are clearly and cleanly revealed, well-focused and detailed, and offer a smoothness free of any notable etched so long as it is not part of the recording itself. Now, I have been listening to Carlos Santana's second studio album, Abraxas, since its release just before my 15th birthday. Now, because of my extraordinary familiarity with and love of this LP, it has long been a reference for me. Now, while the most remarkable release of this recording is represented by the 2016 Mobile Fidelity Ultra Disc One-Step Double 45 RPM LP, to compete with that superlative release in the digital domain, I purchased that same recording in the DSD-64 format. Listening to the beguiling chimes from the opening of Singwin's Crying Beasts from that Abraxas DSD file, I found the uppermost treble reaches ever so slightly remiss of the last level of extension, specificity, and detail. The resultant sonic envelope yields a slightly elusive perception of the air and space of and around those chimes and the other sounds in the uppermost registers, marginally obfuscating the regeneration of the final measure of trailing ambience and decay. While presenting with an otherwise striking sense of space and being comparatively open and focused, the Baltic 3 exhibited just a bit of softness in this region. As good as this DAC is in this regard, I could never quite coax that final infusion of shimmer, air, and effortlessness, regardless of any choice of tubes I had at my disposal. The sonic result is that the upper treble performance is both a bit warmer overall and is not quite as incisive and resolute as with something like the Mola Mola Tambaki, or even the LampizatOr's own current big guns, the Golden Gate 2 or Pacific. One primary sonic attribute group that favors tube DACs in general, and LampizatOr models in specifically, over the majority of solid-state entrants, are those relating to the rendering of the spatial and dimensional aspects of the sonic tapestry. The typical inabilities of the average DAC in these criteria, especially when compared to the results so commonly bettered by the world of LP playback, have been largely responsible for my standoffishness with digital playback. Where this device really makes a statement and clearly presents another of its bona fide gifts is in those areas that most music lovers living on a digital playback diet are fated to suffer. That of exhibiting comparatively lean tonality and thin dimensionality. This DAC's ability to render a focused, three-dimensional, realistically sized soundstage with lifelike images, conveying a substantial sense of physical bloom and corporal body, is, well, enchanting, especially when rolled out with the NOS MELZ 6H8C metal bass inputs. This DAC more readily articulates and individualized voices and separate instruments, and quite faithfully communicates their sizes and spatial interrelationships more truthfully, in a more genuine manner, than any other DAC I can name in its rather competitive class. It's a remarkable DAC. Further, its ability to relate both microdynamic immediacy and macrodynamic gradation is especially effective and quite engaging. It offers incredible control at scaling the human voice in all its myriad subtleties, from recreating a startling Q-sound whisper of Sting's voice off your left shoulder at the very close of When the Angels Fall from the Soul Cages, to reconstructing the chilling and powerfully expressiveness delivered by David Bowie on the opening cut Cat People Putting Out Fire from the 1982 Giorgio Moroder Cat People movie soundtrack. Another of its standout capabilities is that it fluently exhibits a persuasively palpable ability to present relevant musical detail, all the while maintaining virtually uncolored and markedly rich tonal color and texture. This exceptional little upstart effortlessly blends its stark tonal neutrality, its remarkably broad and expressive dynamic contrasts, micro and macro, and its firmly resolved low frequencies, with its overachieving ability to preserve the harmonics, timbral purity, fluidity, and dimensionality of a performance. I am struck by the fact that it offers one of, if not the most seductive and remarkable representation of dimensionality, body, and bloom I've yet to uncover in its class. And honestly, even when evaluated against some other well-reviewed and respected DACs selling for twice as much and more, honestly. Guys, this all adds up to make the Baltic 3 both an outstanding performer and an exceptional value in today's highly competitive market. Now, while I clearly do not need another DAC, I've decided to ask LampizatOr to send me a bill. This remarkable little performer isn't leaving my system anytime soon. It is most enthusiastically recommended. As always, guys, thanks for taking the time to drop in today. Don't forget to like and share links to your favorite episodes with your friends or on social media, or to post your comments and questions. And be sure to subscribe to be notified about every new episode. Information on supporting the channel may be found on today's description section or at my website, theaudioanalyst.com. Please stay safe and keep the music playing, won't you? Till next time, cheers.